ahead. Emmanuel, thank you for joining us. You're from your home in or from a home in Malibu, and I'm in my home in Dallas, despite the background here. We'd like to welcome all of our IC members today. So these are some of our nearest and dearest donors to the Dallas Opera. It's been a long time since we've been able to congregate, so we are so grateful for you all taking time to get together before this Tosca. I hope you all have a beverage in hand, a little cocktail before we start talking about Tosca. The way that this is going to operate today is simply a bit of a discussion between Emmanuel and myself. I see you came prepared. And then we will open the floor to some questions. And what we'll do, there's a feature in Zoom that allows you to, it's called a Q&A. So if you click on that, you can type your question in, and I will see that, and I'll relay that to Emmanuel in due course. But before we get into that, I just want to take a moment and thank everybody for being such amazing supporters throughout an incredible time in the history of the world. It has distanced us greatly, but at the same time brought us together in new ways, given us an even bigger appreciation, I think, for the longing of being able to get together to make music. I know that the innovation that's going on in the world is really inspiring, and we're doing our fair share at the Dallas Opera and our own social media endeavors as well. So a couple of things just to remind you of that before we wrap up at the end is that we have our own handles on Facebook, Instagram. So we'll make sure that you have access to all that, so you can see as much of the TDO network as possible. So Tosca is one of the great operas of all time. We have it planned for next year as well. It'll be the final show in the 2020-2021 season. It's got to be one of the most popular operas of all time for many varieties of reasons. We chose it because we had quite an incredible cast that was able to be assembled, and a new production to bring to Dallas that we are very excited about. The production that's designed by Robert Perziola, be directed by Jose Maria Condemi. And it's just one of those casts that has already proven itself. Jennifer Rowley, throughout the history of Tosca's, has really made her mark recently in the past few years as a signature role. And of course, Ambrogio Maestri is one of the most significant Italian baritones of the past generation. So to have him making his debut in Dallas in such a signature role were key factors in bringing it to you. But Maestro, we're going to talk about your Tosca that you just that we'll be watching later on tonight at the Met. It has quite an operatic story to reveal on its own, that Tosca, and I wonder if you might want to just talk about that a little bit.
Right. So it is a very dramatic story, and you have to go back to the nomination of Peter Gelb to understand all the resonances of that Tosca. When Peter Gelb took the Met after Joe Volpi, he really wanted to make a strong case for innovative staging. And the Metropolitan Opera was maybe the best house, the premium house in the world when it came to music, but it's a house that was never known for innovative staging or let's say avant-garde staging in any way, or even for theatrical values in staging. They were great productions, but they were productions that were more traditional and where the drama was always conceived as a support for the music making, which was, again, world class and maybe top world class, number one. Peter Gelb has been very successful in some of this. He has been less successful in some of this. And as we know, the tastes in the US and in Europe are different. The tastes in Dallas and in New York and Chicago and Los Angeles are different. One of the production that Peter tried to do in a more modern way was a Tosca. There has been at the Metropolitan a very, very famous Tosca by Zeffirelli, historical Tosca, beautiful Tosca. There was one version of that Tosca, I believe, in Covent Garden too, which I did in Covent Garden. Lavish scenery, spectacular, beautiful costumes, all what we like in opera, definitely. And Peter wanted, bless his heart, actually, to have a production that would be more theatrical, which in that case meant simpler, concentrating on the drama between the characters and everybody. And he hired a French director called Luc Bondy, who did a very, very striking but dry Tosca. And that Tosca was seen by many people as unsuccessful. I'm not sure it was actually unsuccessful artistically, but it was seen as unsuccessful. I mean, he has been criticized, for instance, for Luc Bondy in that staging for having Tosca on the couch for Visidarte. Well, actually, if you look at the score, it does say she sits on the couch. So in the name of the purist and, you know, oh, you're betraying Puccini, in fact, he was following Puccini. But let's say that it had been seen as a non-success, and Peter very wisely started to change a little direction and say, okay, I am not going to cave on dramatic value, but I'm going to do another new Tosca, which is not going to be the Zeffirelli Tosca, but which is going to be a very spectacular Tosca. And he asked David McVicker, who is definitely one of those directors who cares about musical values as much as dramatic values, in a fantastically way of interconnection between the two, which is what opera is about. Very lavish scenery, an incredible production, and he wanted the best possible singers available for it, which meant Bryn Terfel as Carpia, Jonas Kaufmann as Cavaradossi, and Anna Netrebko as Tosca herself. Well, all of them started having issues. They could not rehearse enough. Jonas is working less and less in the States, could not commit to such a long period of rehearsal. David McVicker, who likes to rehearse because he's a theater man, I think, you know, wanted to make sure he had a tenor that would be able to do a new production. So Jonas was out of this a few months before the rehearsal was supposed to start. And the conductor was supposed to be, at one point, Anders Nielsen, whose wife was then Opolais, Christina Opolais. But Christina all of a sudden was retiring the role, let's say. And Anders Nielsen, boss of the Boston Symphony, Dean, the connection doesn't seem to be good, says Brian, but maybe it's on his side. I think we have other people who are having a good connection here. And Christina, yeah, Caroline says you sound good to me. Okay, sorry, Brian, maybe you have to reset your wireless. So Christina pulled out, Anders Nielsen, who is a fantastic conductor, pulled out, Jonas pulled out, then Jimmy Levine, who was going out of the Met, pulled in, and then Jimmy was pulled out of the Met. And that's where I came in, because I was doing at the Met a production of Thais with Eileen Perez, which was maybe, and still is to this day, my biggest success at the Met, and it was a biggest success for Eileen. And I was just in New York then, and I knew very well the new cast, which at that point was Sonia Yoncheva, Grigolo, and Bryn Terfel. And this was by far the most important production of Peter Gelb in the year, if not in a big part of his tenure, because this was all of a sudden resetting some of the ambitions and changing slightly course, but with a winning strategy. And I was doing my last performance within the last performances of Thais. And I was walking in New York, Upper West Side, just in front of Fairway. I used to have an apartment that had a window on the back of Fairway. And I just see John Corigliano and Mark Adamo in the street. And we start chatting. And then all of a sudden, my phone rings. And normally I don't take the call if I'm talking to friends, or especially someone like John and Corigliano or Mark. And I said, I'm sorry, I have a feeling I need to take that call. It was Peter Gelb telling me, well, do you want to do the Tosca? I said, well, I mean, give me 24 hours. I have 2 concerts in Prague. I have something else. I don't know what I had in another city. I have to jungle. I have to say, well, tomorrow, you need to give me an answer by tomorrow. And of course, I said yes. I bent myself into a pretzel to do this. And I had to go back and forth. I did 4 trips, which is 8 back and forth in 2 months between Europe and the States to be able to do that production, which these marks here are coming from that. It's getting a little better now. And we rehearsed. So with Sonia, it was the first time Sonia was doing Tosca. And it was the first time Grigolo was doing Cavaradossi. And Brian Turfel, well, Brian was there from the very beginning, and Brian was really, Bryn Turfel was, I mean, he's extraordinary, and he arrives and does 2 rehearsals, and then we get a call, Bryn is sick, and Bryn was sick, and Bryn had to cancel, and we got Lucic, who was great. So there was a lot of pressure, a lot of tension around this. A lot of nerves in rehearsal, especially from some of the members in the cast. And again, a huge attention, because this was both a very important production for Peter Gelb, and this was supposed to be a Jimmy Levine production, and there was the whole scandal around the Jimmy Levine just at the time. It was the New Year Gala. So, I mean, never have I felt so much pressure on me doing a premiere in any opera house. And here I was in the most important opera house in the world, with one of their most important production ever. But we survived. And I think the final product is a very strong product. It's a beautiful production. Both Vittorio and Sonia and also Lucic are really fantastic. And by the time we did the video, which I've not seen yet, I'm still under the stress of all of this, this was a really, really good Tosca.
That's quite amazing. I mean, one of those variables in a production is plenty, but to have conductor and every major role have at least one different character is
right.
Unprecedented.
There used to be a rule in houses like the Paris Opera, or the Metropolitan Opera, Wiener Staatsoper, Tosca, the big houses, here they are, that whoever you are not big enough to debut any role in that house. That means even if you are Melchior, if it's your first Parsifal, you cannot do it in one of those houses. You have to have done it once before, somewhere else, in a smaller house. And in that case, well, no, that's not. I had done Tosca, fortunately.
So what was, of those role changes, of the role debuts, where did you put most of your time? Where was your most biggest challenge in teaching the role for the first
time? That's a good question. Well, Angelotti was also debuting, if I remember.
Oh.
But it was fine. I mean, there is such a support system at the Met with coaches and so on that we were, I mean, working very intensely. I would say Sonia is always a very good partner. She's very dedicated. and she's a good sport, and she takes advices, and it's a mutual, you know, it's a discussion. It's, oh, can we take time here, or I need time here, or, you know, you're dragging here, let's move, let's move. Some other members were a little less confident in the process, so they were more like, that's the way I want it, even if that way was not exactly what I had on the page.
Yeah. I imagine it must have been a challenge for the director too, to kind of just have all of these revolving doors of who the cast is going to be, and on any given level, because you build a cast with everybody in mind, and one variable changes several other things. And you've done a lot with David
Right.
before, and he made his American debut here at Dallas Opera in the Manon.
Yes, I
Yeah,
understand that. And this
yeah,
is the same Manon that I did then in Covent Garden, and I also did at the Lyric of Chicago, and it's the best Manon. I mean, it's really,
yeah.
no, Covent Garden was Laurent Pellier, actually. But I mean, David is a real stage director for drama.
Yeah.
That means he can put a text in perspective. He can give some kind of development to a character, to a situation. He can take an angle that is not exactly the literal angle, but that still is going to give you even more the juice of the connection between, in the case of opera, the character, the situation, the words, the musical line, the orchestral line, and the overall artistic gesture. And there will be definitely an angle to this that's going to make all these elements relevant, vivid, and interconnected. That's actually very rare to find someone at that level. So, you know, John Copley was like that in a very classical way in the past. And I would say, and probably both of them would not necessarily take this as a compliment, I don't know. And David is the modern version of that kind of integrity in knowing the score, understanding the drama, understanding the weird connections between the two, and sometimes the oppositions between the two, and still being able to have a personal approach to this, which is making those things very alive.
I agree. One of the hallmarks for me of his work is that you see the full story in each of these characters, and it's not only what they're singing, it's the way that they come into the room, it's the mannerisms that they have, it's the way that they handle their costumes, all of these kinds of things, the attention to the detail and the depth of the characters.
Right.
It's remarkable.
Yeah. And to answer your question, he is able also to adapt to whoever he has.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't work for A, he's going to change it for B because B is in front of him, which brings, you know, very often you do revival in those houses. Then, well, now, you know, the tenor enters here and then he turns. No, the note is like this. Well, the original director would be there and say, what does it mean to you? How do you, and David is very quick at that. David also was great when some people in the cast didn't want to work. It was great. I'd say, okay, I need 15 minutes to fix this. And I can fix it in 15 minutes. I just say, come on, you can't fix this in 15 minutes. You would need a lifetime of coaching to fix this. And he finds the right word to say, and he fixes it. It goes to the heart of what it is. Now, David was very nervous too. We were all very nervous because of the pressure that was on that production. I've never seen so much pressure on the production.
It was. The expectations were incredibly high. I mean, really to be almost the antithesis of the Luc Bondy production. And what was the wow factor like the first time you saw the first major rehearsal with the sets in their grandeur?
I think the sets are for me an absolute success.
John McFarlane was the designer, right? Yeah.
Yeah, John, and he did something that was in many ways comparable to what the Zeffirelli production had, but better, and in a way with a more modern theatrical value, and that would work very well with David concept in general. So it was beautiful. It was lavish. The people who gave a lot of money for those sets could see that money on stage, definitely. but it was also helping the story and helping tell the story in a beautiful way. I mean, some of the most amazing sets I have seen. The problem with the sets of the Met often is that they can't travel because it's so big. So I wish we could have that production one. Actually, now it's turning at the Met, but you can't. It's just gigantic.
It's immense, and it's not only the physicality of the set, it's the mechanisms that they design in mind with their elevators and technical capabilities to that rarely any place can replicate that. So it's few. I want to ask you, we've got it's a little bit before 6. We want to wrap up about 10 minutes after 6 so that we give people a chance to have a break and refill their drinks and everything before joining. But I wanted to ask you, Emmanuel, I mean, Tosca must have been an opera that you fell in love with at some point early on. I was in the children's chorus of that when I was a kid. Tell me some of your favorite moments in the opera.
I think it would have to be a good contender for one of my favorite opera and for one of the most perfect operas. So in Puccini, my heart goes maybe first to Butterfly because of that story. I mean, and the way and the poetry in the music reaching level that I don't think you have anywhere else. But then it's Bohème and Tosca. My first encounter with Tosca, actually, I was a children's chorus at the Strasbourg Opera, but I didn't do Tosca. So my first encounter was a Visidarte that I saw on TV. And I was maybe 12, 13. I didn't know what it was. I just could see the subtitles and I was absolutely melting, mesmerized by what was happening. And it's one of those shocks where you'd say, wow, I have known this emotion in me for so many years, but I've never expressed it. And here it is, vivid and so true. And I was just saying, oh my God, what is this? I need to be part of this being that opera. So that was my first shock with it. And then I remember seeing a performance with Giacomini at the Karlsruhe Opera, which was in Germany at the border, on the other side of the border.
Yeah.
Small theater, good theater, small theater. Small, but they had Giacomini singing Cavaradossi. And then he sang La Vita Mi Costasse. And on this high B natural, my whole body started shaking and shaking and shaking, like I had never heard it. And they, that throat still opens and the set goes in the throat, and then the pit goes in the throat, the whole theater goes in that throat, and I jumped in that throat myself. And that feeling, I mean, it's bizarre. It's like you have the greatest baritone G natural, and then it goes to an A, it goes bigger, it gets B flat, and then that B natural, like trembling like this, it's an earthquake. It's the biggest whale getting the ocean in its throat. This is one of the greatest excitement. Then I was the assistant of one of my two mentors, was Spiros Argyris at the Paris Opera, and then the Paris Opera, and it was with Placido. And I did a lot of rehearsals. And then I was almost asked to replace in a subsequent production. But I didn't do it. But I had a lot of memories at the Paris Opera with Tosca. And then I assisted Seiji Ozawa in Tosca, the Paris Opera too, with Placido once more. And so I have a lot of great memories there. It's one of those opera. It took me time, like Bohème, to not be really scared going in the pit. It's full of traps. It's technically really difficult, and then you still need to make so fluid and so divine and easy.
Well, it's easy having watched you conduct them here in Dallas a few years ago. It was easy to see how much you loved it even then. So I'm going to turn this over now to a few questions, and let's see if we can get. So we've got. Let's see. This is a question. Was there a specific moment in your experience conducting it at the Met in 2018 that stands out? Was there a specific moment in the Met in 2018 that stands
out? I don't remember really a striking moment. I love the Te Deum. I like to try to milk it as much as possible, but with Lucic, I had to stay within a certain tempo. So I tried to get it to milk, but not to kill the baritone. But when it worked, it worked nicely. The Triomphale, and all that Tosca being happy and delusional. That is something that I always love. So yes, my favorite moment is that when she's asking him to act like an artist.
Like an artist, ecco un artista.
Yeah. And thinking he's going to be shot by fake bullets. And that music of elation, of happiness to be liberated, and the great show is going to happen, and you're going to be as good an actor as I am an actor. But you know, as an audience, he's going to die. And you have those cymbals going shum. And I always ask the cymbals not to be played like this, but to get slide to each other, like shum. It's like death slowly going to you in a dance that's smiling and just finally enveloping you. But the music is extraordinary. So when you have managed all the traps and you arrive at that moment in the opera, that's quite an exhilarating moment.
Oh,
yes. Oh. But I would say the whole production, I was so working with my colleagues who had their issues there, and it was hard to really, you keep that for you guys, but enjoy myself fully, like you should in some other instances.
Yeah, it's work. It's work.
It was work, yeah.
Someone asked a question about the background in my video. This is the Castel Sant'Angelo in Rome, where
the final scene. Yeah, she's going to jump from up there in a few hours.
And I don't know, I assume most of you have traveled to Rome at some point in your life. I went up for a tour in the Castel Sant'Angelo, and all I had remembered was this, every Tosca that I'd ever seen, where at the very end she comes in and she stands at the parapet to jump off, and all of these guards swarm up, and they come up in a huge numbers, and they stand there, and it must, 10, 15 people come on stage in a matter of, I don't know, 20 seconds, something along those lines. I mean to tell you, there is one skinny door to get to the top of the Castel Sant'Angelo. So there is no way anybody was rushing up with guns, and she could have found alternate ways to take care of that. She was not in any hurry to jump, because there was no way an army was coming up under that one door.
Right. So heart is the power of lie to a truth that is stronger than reality.
Yeah, there was a very strong heart there.
Yes.
There's a lot of heart. Let's go back here to questions and see. Let's see. Did Peter Gelb speak to you of his reaction to the performance?
Yeah, I think the whole Met and everybody was relieved. At the premiere, it was also a big New York affair, because again, it was the New Year Gala, which is the biggest fundraiser, and the Clintons were there, which was clearly they were supported by the people around. I was surprised, because I knew there were a lot of people who were not. Democrats, but the Clintons were like rock stars in that receptions. And Renee Fleming was there. The whole New York was there and congratulating and so on. And Peter, I think Peter was relieved. I mean, he had the success he had planned there. I was zombified a little because there was so much traveling back and forth and so much stress. And again, we got more and more comfortable as the performance were going on.
That's great. Let's see some other questions here. What can we look forward to with our own Tosca next season? Well, go ahead, Emmanuel.
Well, I mean, Jennifer Rowley is fantastic, and Jennifer actually did some of that run at the Met with me, and she was terrific. I mean, she was very strong, and you know, it was not second drawer after Sonia Yoncheva. So that it's a fantastic cast. Caroline Wilson is conducting. She has done Tosca a lot. She knows it very well. It's a different production than the one you have seen so far in the Windspear. It's an opera I think one can see every season, and here you have it with a different cast and with a different production. So I think you should all go.
That's great. And the tenor, our tenor is Gianluca Terranova, who was here for Butterfly a couple of years ago. He made his debut there, so we're looking forward to having him back. That'll be a big Vittoria for sure. Let's see, other questions from the audience. We've got just a reminder that if you have questions, the easiest thing to do is go to the Q&A on the banner in this, and we'll get back to you. There's a hand up from, let's see. Mike Lowenberg, I don't know if you have a question, but feel free to chime in. All right, I think we'll, Emmanuel, before we say goodbye, I want to thank you for being a part of this. We're all so looking forward to seeing you do your thing. We missed seeing you do your thing, but we're excited to enjoy it in this new way.
As you said, Ian, this is canned opera. This is microwave opera, streamed online. This is all we have right now. This is really fun. The real thing is coming back, and we need you for the real thing, and we know you will be there. In the meantime, be safe, be well. Don't hesitate to write to us. Don't hesitate to contact us. We'll be happy. And please, a lot of industries are hurt right now by this crisis, but theaters are hurt more than most of them. And so if you have ways to support us, please do. We are being very careful. As you know, Ian and myself are taking a pay cut because we want the money to go where it should go. And we are going to be ready to rock or to opera like we have never done before, and we're very excited to start again. So please renew your subscription, for instance.
Yeah, that's the key thing. We really want everybody to make sure that they subscribe. If you are already a subscriber, tell a friend to subscribe. That is music to our ears. We are so excited about the next season. So it's a long way to wait till our Tosca, but we've got a lot of great opera planned in the meantime before then. So if there are any other questions, I'll just take one last look here. And I think that we have now sent around the link for tonight. Most of you should have that link in your invitation for this Zoom meeting that'll take you to the Met simulcast here in just a few minutes. But thank you all for being here. Thank you all for supporting the Dallas Opera in all the various ways. Maestro, you get to enjoy this from a very unique seat for you. So I hope that you have a wonderful night and enjoy the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ian. Thank you, guys. See you soon.